Welcome back to What Drives You with my special guest today and dear friend Bill Kurzeja. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Do you like well, you already saw it, my new Jason Statham look? This is my
Yeah,
Jason
looking
Statham haircut.
looking good.
Since it's going away anyway, I just figured I'd trim it down and make it look, more manageable.
Yeah.
You are blessed with still a full head of hair. So,
Yeah, yeah, I am. It is a blessing, and sometimes when you have to go to the barber every couple weeks, it's not.
put
You
that in the
know.
expense column. Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about and what drives you. For those of you who are new, what drives you is a channel that really our goal is just to help you do better and be better, right? We try and entertain, educate, and encourage. Hopefully, one of those three things will happen today with Bill. And he has encouraged me, so I know you'll at least get encouraged. And I just wanted to say, Bill, to kick it off, that when I was thinking about our interview today and our time today talk, I was like, Bill's pretty much been an inspiration to me in three key areas of my life, which are one, you're just a survivor, right? You one of the hardest working guys that I ever worked with in the business from all your volunteer work. I mean, you were like volunteering like a lunatic, dad of young kids, and working, our 50, 60 hours at the dealership. So that I don't know how you did it. In health, just all your workout, consistency and training and ultra marathons, again, when the heck do you find the time? So you're a life encouragement, a health encouragement, and content. You were early, and we'll talk about that too. That was one thing I missed in our pregame. Just your podcast and all your episodes and how you again fit that in and how you did it, and maybe even why you stopped or why you paused. So a lot of stuff to talk about today. So thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I look forward to this.
First off, so you obviously there's a little accent in there. I know you're broadcasting live from California, but you grew up on the East Coast. Tell us about that. How you started, mom and dad, fam, all that.
Yeah, born and raised Philadelphia. Born in South Philly, raised in the Northeast is what they call it, the neighborhood. You know, uh, Mom, dad, blue collar. Dad was a roofer forever, in the building maintenance, things like that. Mom was an accountant, not through college or traditional forms of education, but, self-learned and then, ran offices for different businesses throughout her career. One sibling, my older sister, who you talk about my triathlons and different things like that. And she's nationally ranked in Tough Mudder, and she's a couple years older than me. So definitely um, in the family. My father played sports till he was in his 60s, in different baseball, softball leagues, so on and so forth. Um, so we've always had that drive. But yeah, born and raised, spent first 20 years of my life there, and then off to the military, and then it kind of opened me up to the world. So a lot changed after that.
Well, thank you for your service. I know you had learned some great and amazing things in there,
Yeah,
which we'll talk about too. But do you remember because I met you here in Chicago area,
yep,
but then you moved back out east, and we went out to, I think it was Chicky and Pete's,
yep.
and it was a Blackhawks versus Flyers game, and I almost was murdered at the restaurant.
Yeah, well, because you were loudly cheering for the Blackhawks. That's part of the issue, right? Growing up in Philadelphia and then traveling throughout the world and seeing different fans and how people, you know, love or hate their sports. It's part of the fabric in Philly. I experienced it in Chicago a little differently. There's people loved different sports, right? Philadelphia, you love the Phillies, you love the Flyers, you love the Sixers, and you love the Eagles, right? There isn't like, oh, I'm a fan of this sport or that sport. It's pretty much a Philadelphia thing. and they're very passionate, and kind of take that to everything that we do. It's interesting being out here in California because there's so many distractions, and for the first 5+ years, I had season tickets to the Padres in San Diego, and the stadium would be empty, or the stadium would be filled with the other team's fans, and it
Yeah.
was, what is going on here? So it's definitely different.
Yeah. Yeah. You also, I don't know if you remember this, we were driving around. It was kind of like I don't know if it was an evening or what we're doing, but it was kind of like the down and dirty super fast tour of Philadelphia. And you drove me by the Rocky statue,
Yeah.
and I vividly remember getting out of the car because it was like crazy traffic, and you're like, "All right, run up there, see the statue, and then I'll meet you back down here." And you kind of just did a loop around, and that was a bucket list moment for me because I love Rocky. I love the whole story. I love the series. I love
Yeah.
how that whole thing transpired. But thank you for that bucket list moment and fun tour of Philly.
No, anytime.
So you grew up on the East Coast, then did the military, and then ended up in Chicago. So tell us how that all transpired, and then your journey here. A little bit about your automotive. I mean, Bill and I worked at a Nissan dealership together. That's where I had met him, and just got to be fast friends with. I don't know if it was age or family or interest. I don't know, all the above, but
Yeah.
just great camaraderie there because now we've been friends about that's probably now 15, 20 years. But a weird place, a little bit of a weird place to work, or interesting place to work, I should say.
Yeah, it definitely was different. So, like I said, born and raised in Philly, went into the military. Uh, I wanted to be a mechanic. I went to, I tried college. I went to Penn State out of high school, and it felt like high school, and it just wasn't my thing. I liked when I discussed things that I was into, but you also had to take English and all the standard classes, right? And I was like, what am I doing? So went into tech school, wanted to be a mechanic, always messed around with my cars with my buddy down the street, and it led me there. Did really well. Comes to graduation time, and I'm standing there, and the different dealerships. It's interesting. I ended up in the dealership world, but different dealerships are interviewing techs, right? What do you got to do? And a big thing they kept saying was how much tools do you have? Right? You need X amount of dollars invested to start and things like that, and I was like, I don't have anything. I had the toolbox that the tech school gave me, which was, a couple wrenches and some screwdrivers. But the Army recruiter was like there, and he's like, we'll pay you, give you the tools, give you the training. I'm like, all right, sign me up. So off I went, had long hair, full beard, get on a plane and a bus, and 4 a.m. there, I'm shaving a beard in the bathroom before PT. Like, oh, you can't go out there. I had still had the long hair. They shaved that for us, and I loved it. I learned how to be what was called a track vehicle mechanic, so tanks. But as I learned, as it progressed to, you know, everybody that worked on the track vehicles also worked on all the wheels. So progressed pretty quickly. I like learning, and when I'm passionate about something, like we discussed earlier, I work hard at it. And next thing I know, I'm moving up the ranks and going all over the world. Ended up in Korea, in the Middle East, a little stint, and a lot of people don't remember before, uh, Desert Storm, the second Desert Storm, that is, there a little place called Kosovo. You know, um, we had to go as peacekeepers there, but it really opened me up and showed me what was out there, and it was the best experience of my life. I honestly would have stayed in forever, but I ended up meeting someone at the time, and we're starting a family, and sat with the insurance agent, right? AAA insurance, life insurance. And I'll never forget it. He's like, and Corinne was just born, my oldest, and he said, how much do you think college is going to cost when she's 18? And I was like, I have no idea. And he goes, well, probably about, 18 grand, some crazy number. And I was like, I don't even make that in a year, so it started me down the path of I needed to look at what will I do, right? I was coming up on 8 years. Do I stay in? Do I go longer? I decided not to stay in and ended up at the car dealership.
But how did you end up at our car dealership? Well, you were there first, so I shouldn't say ours. Your car dealership, where I met you from getting like the jump from, because by the time I met you, you were already a sales manager. So it's hard to
Right.
go from a mechanic to. So give us that little window of mechanic to sales manager.
So I ended up, um, I met someone that worked at McGrath, and was just like, hey, you'd be good at this. You ever think about selling cars? And well, let me back up for a second. So I ended up in Chicago because my wife at the time, that's where she was from. Okay, so she had an older son from a previous marriage, and he was still very young at the time. So we went from the military to Chicago, instead of going back to Philadelphia, where I was originally from. And I end up at McGrath. I sat with Leo McGrath, the old man, and he interviewed me, then Scotty, and next thing you know, I'm selling cars. And it was very interesting because I started selling cars in May, and from May to the end of the year, I made over 60 grand. And when I was in the military, it would have taken me 3 years to make 60 grand. And I was like, this is insane. So I got the bug, right? Like all of us that have ever been in the car business, you get that bug of like, wow, this is pretty cool. Um, and like everything else I've ever done, I kind of go in both feet. I don't hesitate. I just jump. And I started learning, and I started learning finance. And I was a backup finance manager for maybe, and this was only a year in. So I was backup finance for, I want to say 60 days, 90 days. And, one day Scotty comes to me, all right, Billy, you got your shot. I'm moving you to the desk. You got to prove to me that you can not only hire people and train them, but fire them when they're not good enough. And I learned pretty quickly that one of the hardest things to do is to, part ways with someone when they're not performing. And that was how I got my shot, because the person in front of me, he cared. And not that, I learned that if someone's not making it right, if someone's not good at it, then sometimes sitting down and having that difficult conversation is a gift to them, right? We're not all made to be salespeople. We're not all made to be electricians or plumbers, right? Like you either can learn it and build on it, or, you have to go find something else. And sometimes you need someone to tell you you're not good at it, right? Because we'll stick around doing something and not realizing like we're just going in a circle, like the Rocky statue.
Yeah.
You have to go after it. So, and then
Well,
that's what brought you there.
yeah, two great learnings there though, Bill, which is one for the car business. If for those of you who are listening, newer, younger, I mean, car business takes all ages, all races, all colors, all set everything, and you showed in a short window that if you try and listen and learn, look how much money you made, more money than you made in your life in a few months,
Yeah.
right? And then you excelled at that and kept pressing on, and were noticed and got promoted. So, um, you know, again, I said earlier, it's a unique store. That's normally not the timeline from a
No,
guy coming off the street to being at a desk in less than a year, but it can happen, and it does happen. Um, I,
no. And ultimately that's what kind of caused me leaving there. I thought that I would be there forever. and after a handful of years, um, the factory came in and used my progression against me. I was too young in the business. At that point I was in almost 4 years, and they're telling the ownership, Nissan that is, that you need someone with more experience and so on and so forth. And that's what led to me and Scotty parting ways, was that inexperience in a sense, you know.
Yeah.
So
But again, as you said earlier, possibly a gift because we
yeah,
both moved on to bigger and better things, and a lot of learnings were done there. I still have some dear friends from there, yourself, Mike Borowski, Lou Lopez, some good folks that's what I say in all my failures, Bill, in all my jobs is if you learn something from it, it's still valuable.
oh, absolutely,
If you didn't, then it's a waste of time. So
yeah.
okay, so you're in Chicago, you're working at a dealership, you leave there, you bounce around a little bit, but then you guys up and move to I kind of remember the call like, hey, we're moving to California. I'm like, what? So fill me in on that move.
Yeah, so there was a couple years in there, and it was '07, '08, '09. Really, the car business, the whole economy kind of got shot right at that point in time, and bounced around a little bit. Tried living back in Philadelphia. I worked with you for a stint. We were at Cars Direct. I was in New Jersey at that time, Philadelphia, New Jersey. New Jersey's kind of a suburbs to Philly, as you learned.
Yeah.
But then just had an opportunity. Again, my wife at the time was working for the government, and she had an opportunity in San Diego, and why not? So we took a jump, and that was in 2012. The kids were just, Corinne was in middle school, so she was getting ready for middle school. So a little bit tougher for her, but the boys were young, first grade and kindergarten, and moved out here, and then been out here ever since. But during that move, I wanted to take what I have learned, whether it be at the car businesses and the car dealerships, as well as being an outside vendor, Cars Direct, and I worked with Auto Uplink for a period of time, and apply that. And I didn't want to sell cars. Right at this point in my career, I had seen uh, how dealerships operate to an extent, right? The good and the bad, and trust was a tough thing at that point as far as dealerships go. And ultimately, I was finding out that I wanted to help the salespeople more than anything else, right? Because what's the biggest struggle everybody has in the car business, and that is the consistency. Because you can start off the month and bang out 5, 6 cars in the first 5 days, and go dry for 10 days. And you didn't change anything. You're still upping people, calling people, texting people. And it weighs on you mentally. So I wanted to take my struggles and help others. And that led me to consulting, which I did for a lot of years actually, you know. So, and we kept in touch all through that.
Yeah. You that was a great, because you were able to take, again, as you said, the good and the bad, but you got that flexibility in life in that season of life to not have to be, I know you worked long hours, but not 9 to 9, 7 days a week. And you were able to then give back and to some key stores, which is where you met a guy who was like, oh my goodness, I got to have this guy work for me. So tell me about that transition. And that was a tough decision to go from freedom to, back in retail. So tell us about that transition.
Yeah. So just 4+ years ago, 5 years ago, as a consultant, I worked with many dealerships, and then some of those dealerships were part of larger groups. And some of them built great relationships with, and this is one in particular. So transition to consulting for this group, and within the group, one of the managers was moved from one store into an ownership general manager position of another. And we got along and still do very well. And um, he brought me in a lot more. So normally I would just visit twice a month to a store. He wanted me there almost every day. So we literally would talk every single day. And I probably visited the store 3, 4 times a week at some points, and got to the conversation of, hey, what would it take for you to come back? On this side of the desk is what we would call it. And it was just really the conversation about, we see things the same way. We wanted to run a store based off of feeling, energy, right? Like a lot of people that know me, I talk a lot about how do you make people feel comfortable? And I'm talking about consumers, right? Like, so what I've learned over my career was that I'm not just selling a car. Okay. The person is there to buy a car. Absolutely. But they're only buying a car within a safe and comfortable environment. I call it the environment to feel like they could make a decision, right? And Junior, who is the gentleman we're talking about, him and I see that similar trajectory, right? And that feeling. And we wanted people, the store we were taking over, that he took over and brought me along with him, had a very tough reputation, a lot of negative annotations, the typical car dealership stuff, right? And we had to change that mentality. And how do you do that? You have to do it with first your employees, right? Because if you change the mindset of the employees, then they're going to change the feeling that the customers receive walking through the door. And pretty quickly we were able to do that. We accomplished it rather fast. It took a lot of change. There's a lot of people that uh, didn't want to change, didn't see it as a issue or a problem, and they've parted company and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's what really led me to where I'm at now. Uh, and it's definitely been an interesting 4 years. Started off right at the pandemic time frame. Had a lot of employees, scaled down tremendously. Had a inventory shortage, microchip shortage that we all went through. To come out of it to heavy inventory. How do you deal with that? High flooring, high expense, and now dealing with tariffs, and used cars are few and far between, because we went through. I mean, we went through 2+ years of no new car inventory. Well, that's just going to cause our used cars to not be there because they weren't made a couple of years ago, right? And so it's definitely an ever-changing world of automotive that we're living in.
Yeah, and we won't say the name of the place, but it is a Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram store.
Yeah.
So we'll touch on that in a minute. But I'll say one thing: if Bill, if you had a super strength, it is, in my opinion, it's empathy. Right? You just make people feel welcome at home. Can I get you water? Can I get it? Like, you walk in, you're like, is this guy's living room? We're at a business, and he's offering me, like, before any of the sales shenanigans goes on or pitching, you're just making the people feel comfortable, and that's just a really settling, calming characteristic that you embody yourself. And if you can give that to your staff, I mean, more power to you, because that's a hard thing to do.
I appreciate that. It's just, I have always believed you're not going to make a decision or a choice or anything unless you feel safe and comfortable. So how do we do that, right?
Yeah.
You
And a
know?
lot of the car business is about energy and pump it up and ringing bells and blowing horns and I got to make a decision right now. That is not. I've worked at a couple of those places. Not fun, not relaxing, not sustainable. And I think the turnover at those places and the reviews of those places are not great.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Very short lived. Um, so back to one of my earlier uh, compliments about you was podcasting. And I think the podcasting, I think when we met, a week or two ago out in California, I was blessed to be out there for a work trip and reconnect with Bill in person and nudge him to be on the channel. But was really about a conversation you had with uh, a therapist, your consultant, like all the stuff that you had learned and experienced and all that you just wanted to give back and share. So if you, yeah, just tell us about how you did that. How long did it last? What was the theme of it? Why did you pause or stop? Because I mean, you were kind of way ahead of the curve. I mean, I'm just about 30 episodes in here. We are, I should say, and you were miles ahead. And I enjoyed, some of your episodes. My problem with your stuff was, Bill, was this is gonna sound terrible. It was so freaking calming. I'd put it on at night when I was trying, and I'd fall asleep in like 5 minutes and didn't finish the episode. Like, dang it, I got to start this thing over. So,
Yeah, so I turned 51 this year, okay? And this was back about 5, 6 years, maybe a little bit longer, my early 40s. And I was just kind of didn't know where I was going, right? The kids are starting to get a little older. Um, what drives me? I gained a lot of weight, wasn't real healthy, and I needed something to push me, right? So, um, me growing up in the household I grew up in, if you brought up therapy or therapist or anything along those lines, it was like, well, you're not sick. Why do you need that, right? Um, I love my folks and everything else, but it was easier not to talk about things. You didn't discuss it, right? Like the hard conversations, you kind of just ignored it, right? It'll go away. Um, so as I progressed and my kids are getting older, I didn't want that. I wanted I wanted to learn how I can be better, And I met someone who was a therapist, a licensed family therapist, and we met at a local in San Diego meetup for small business owners, right? And she asked me to help with her social media and things like that, and we just became friends. And it was, just like car sales and stuff like that, you're kind of always on. You meet somebody and they kind of go, "Oh, I'm looking for X. Oh, how can I help?" A therapist is very similar, right? They're by nature they want to help and develop and so on and so forth. So we kind of exchange services. I helped her with her social, and we would sit for 15, 20, 30 minutes a day, kind of talking. And she taught me that one of the most important tools in all of our toolbox was no. Okay, I tend to say yes to everything. I'll double triple book myself because I want everyone to be happy, and I can make them happy because I can do XYZ for all of them. And I was just spreading myself too thin and not taking care of me. And she said one time to me, the only way you can take care of anyone around you is you have to take care of yourself first, right? And she used a description of the airplane. So they tell you to put the oxygen mask on first before small kids, because if you'll run out of oxygen, you can't put their mask on. So it felt really good to talk to someone and find out that I'm not the only one, right? Because we tend to always believe that, oh, I'm the only one going through this in the whole wide world. And I wanted to share it, and that's what I said to her. I go, you know what? Because she started doing YouTube videos, right? And that's what started. I was just filming her, helping her with that. And I said, you know what? Why don't we start a podcast? And so basically I took my therapy and put it online. So that's why it can be a little kind of dry or talking and things like that. But then it developed into actually interviewing. We interviewed some authors and some different people that have done many different things and many different experiences. I want to say we got up to almost 100 episodes, just us.
wow.
And then I was brought on at a 50 plus other episodes, just different small businesses, different small podcasts that similar to what we're talking about now, the journey and what you, because what is the biggest thing? What is your goal here is to enlighten people that to other people's stories, as well as finding similarities between your journey and my journey, and learning that we're not alone, that we do experience similar struggles and different things. So, but that's what led me to triathlon. You talk about the run-in and everything. I had to set a goal for myself, and that's athletics was the thing that I focused on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, as a father of four, right? 3.5, 4,
yeah,
you, me too. It's hard because you're just pouring into all these people, which is what we're supposed to do, right? And you're
right.
caring for them and trying to make them feel safe and secure. And then a lot of times you do. Told you that the other day when I've not worked out as much as I have this year in the last 10 years. That's embarrassing to say, but it's a fact, right? So if you don't take care of yourself, you literally cannot help anyone. So that's a great learning. And by the way, you said dry. I didn't say dry. I said calming on
No,
us.
I understand.
So yeah, so that's great. And then why'd you guys stop?
So, just at the point where we did it so consistently, and you just kind of it ran its course. You know, as I've gone through life, I've learned that there's different um, phases, right? Like you said, relationships. You learn something, you bring stuff out of it. Our time together at the dealership we were at, and having friendships from there, as well as you know. Just the relationship I had with Gina. I mean, like that got me through that point in my life, and I hope I gave something to her as well. And then you kind of move on, right? And then if that's supposed to come back, it comes back.
Yeah,
You know?
there's definite seasons in all of that, right? I mean, there's that again for most of us, pre-kids, with kids, post-kids. I mean, that's most
Yeah,
Americans' life, right? Um, and so those seasons, everything is cyclical. I even think about Bill, like um, TV shows and content creators. You can only talk about so much. I mean, you and I both share a common interest in Joe Rogan's channel. I mean, now I get to the point where I'm unfortunately picky. Sorry, Joe Rogan, where I'm like, if I don't recognize the person or in the little description, if it's like not something that I
yeah.
would like have interest in, I don't even watch it. So um, again, I think we're overwhelmed with the amount of content and options and choices there are out there, and so we become numb to something or get bored with something faster than we ever have.
No, there's you hit it right on the head. I mean, there's so much out there that it's easy to be distracted and drawn in some other direction.
Yeah. So tell us about Jeep. I know that's one of your key things, and we've talked a little bit about that. That's current state of affairs. Um, I said this to you the other day, which is Jeep is the most historic and loyal brand, I believe, in all of America, right?
Yeah.
Especially from a volume perspective. Maybe Porsche, you could argue, maybe Saab back in the day, even Subaru. But the number of Jeeps that are out there and have been sold, and that the imagery of, I don't know if you saw the one more recently. I think it was Harrison Ford
Yeah,
that
Harrison
that
Ford.
they campaign. I mean, just it's amazing. And 100 years of Jeep, I think a couple years ago. So tell us about Jeep, and if anyone's interested in a Jeep, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh goodness. Um, so yeah, Jeep. I mean, I love it. I mean, we're actually a Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Um, Chrysler meaning Pacifica. you know, the only vehicle that in that line right now. Dodge is kind of in a crossroads, trying to figure itself out, was going full electric, and we have some hybrid stuff coming. Jeep is a bread and butter, right? Like, especially where we are, we're located at the base of a mountain, Big Bear, and you can look out our window and see the snow, and we know within the next couple of weeks we'll have some 4x4 drivers coming in looking for vehicles. That's the majority of what we sell are Jeeps. The owner has a Jeep that's really done up for off-roading. There was a period of time that we gave away free classes. We had a partnership with an expert. That's what he did his whole life. He raced cars, and then it went into Jeeping, and he lived up there, and he would teach you how to 4x4. Because one of the most interesting things in what we do is most of our buyers don't even know how to put their vehicle into four-wheel drive. And it's pretty fascinating because, like you said, there's a lot of people out there that I want to own a Jeep. Now you have what are called rock crawlers and mall crawlers, and so we've definitely touched a lot more of the market and the people out there. And then we have Ram, which is a great truck. Has been JD Powers multiple years in a row now. You and I have talked about, the truck itself, and what if you could have in the same town the Ford, the Chevy, and the CD, then the Ram store, and you could just corner the market. But they've gone through some transition, 8 cylinders to 6 cylinders, with turbos on it, and outperforming the 8 cylinder, but people still want that big motor, even though the other one will outperform it and it'll be less to fill up at the pump. So, go figure. But I mean, I guess I say the name of the store.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm at Redlands, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. Just look us up, hit us up, and just ask for me. It's pretty much what most people do, and we go from there. I like to be hands-on. I've always been a manager at every store that I've worked at, where I like to meet and greet and shake hands and say that's the most enjoyable part of the job, is just helping someone find what they're looking for, meeting them with it, helping it fit into their budget, and help them figure that out, right? Like, a lot of people don't realize in our industry, a lot of people don't realize that, it's an experience for the consumer. They don't buy a car every year. Two, the prices change every year. They go up, they go down. They tend not to go down, but lately ours have, which has been great. I've never seen a manufacturer change MSRPs to lower them, the suggested retail price, but they have 10 grand in some cases. So, one of the things that I really enjoy about the brand, struggle a little bit between us and them, right, as far as the store and them, but they do tend to, like, they made a mistake. They raised their prices too high, and they've adjusted. So it's nice to see that. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy just marrying people with the vehicle that they want.
Bill, how many Jeep dealers are in the US, roughly?
Oh goodness, I don't
I
even
want to
want
say,
to know.
well,
A lot.
the reason I bring that, I want to say there's 1,000 to 1,200. Does that sound
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, it sounds right.
So there's a lot of places to buy a Jeep. What I'm telling
Yeah.
you is, one, because of the trust I have in this man here, this friend, and the experience of literally buying a Jeep and looking up Big Bear and having an adventure. It's worth flying out there. I mean, you can fly to LAX for cheap. How long does it take you to get to LAX?
Well, depending on traffic, but you could get there in an hour and a half.
Yeah. So you drive pretty much straight east out of
Yeah.
LAX, right? And you're
Yeah.
there, and
We'll
you know,
pick you up.
they'll pick you up, they'll road trip it home, get that. I don't know if you can have some sort of 4x4 experience is my point. And buying that same Jeep here in Chicago, you're a Flatlander, you're a mall crawler, you're bored as crap. So
Yes.
yeah, if you're gonna make a trip of it, and that's what Jeep's all about, right? The adventure. Look up Bill. Um, yeah. So Bill, we here on the channel, it started out. I think you and I've discussed this, and those of us who have followed along. This is not my channel. This is an our channel. This is, we have co-hosts. My daughters helped out a little bit. Lindsay, Latsko, Stan Windhorn, Ken Potter. I just want to have a bunch of co-hosts because I don't know everybody. I don't know everything. I hope maybe you can bring us a guest or two, and we can fire back up your content creation. Because Bill, after today, you're going to be a YouTuber, so don't
Yep.
forget that.
Looking
Um,
forward to it.
but uh, we talk about finding out a few different things. Backing up, the channel was about automotive, but it
Right.
quickly morphed into what drives you in life. So you've talked about a little bit about what's driven you in life: family, fitness, just wanting to earn more than you did and care for your family. That's powerful drivers in life. But what if you could share some words of wisdom with young Bill Kurzeja? By the way, when you call the store, his name is kind of hard to spell and say, so just call him Billy K, and they will know
Yeah.
exactly who he is for reference. But what would you tell young Bill or your two boys, 2.5 boys, about life? We've had some great. I'll give you a couple examples. We've had some guests say, "Just begin, just start." We've
Yeah.
had simple recommendations like just be nice, right? So it doesn't have to be profound, doesn't have to be earth changing, but what would you wish that somebody would have told you back when you were 17, 18, 19 years old?
So I think the biggest thing, and I tell the boys, I tell Corinne as well, right? Like, um, we always get concerned or caught up in relationships, right? Why is it ending? We always talk about ending, ending, ending. And one of the things that I realized from the guys that I shared the bunks with, the rooms in the military, to all the people throughout the automotive industry and life, right, is relationships are amazing. Embrace them for what they are, but also step back and understand for what they are, right? Now, you and I have been in a relationship. Our friendship has been 20 plus years now. Um, I can't say that for everyone else I met 20 years ago, you know, and why, right? Understanding that everyone comes in and out of our lives and we are go in and out of their lives and serve a purpose. Sometimes that purpose is forever. Sometimes that purpose is only for a few months. But embrace that relationship for what it is, enjoy it, get everything you can, give everything you can. But when it ends in one shape or form, understand that it was beautiful while it lasted, right? We always get stuck on the why did it end and forgetting that it was pretty amazing while it lasted and be thankful for that time.
Yeah, that's a great one. It's kind of like, when people focus, and you and I've talked about this, this, you lose a spouse or a sibling or whatever, and we all focus on why did it happen so young and
Yeah,
all that, as opposed to like with my sister, we had 38 years of crazy adventures with my sister Liz, right?
right.
And that's what I kind of, and it's a choice to focus on the death and why it had happened. It's unfair, blah, 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 as opposed to, man, I had 38 years of unexpected joy and adventure and fun and fights. We fought a lot. I mean, we're siblings, right? And she tried to be one of
Yep.
the boys. But if you focus on, like you said, the the power that comes from that relationship of the time, it's just it's way more positive, way more encouraging than why unfair, this sucks, shame on
Yeah.
me, right? So good stuff. All right, here is the car questions though, and I warned you about this a little bit. What was your first car, Bill K?
A Chevy Citation.
Yeah.
Yes. $350 was the car. I think the radio system I put in it was a little bit over 400, and it had to be mounted in my glove box because it wouldn't fit where the radio would be. you know. But yeah, that was my first car.
Chevy Citation.
Yeah,
S-
looked a little bit like a gremlin.
Yeah, piece of crap.
Yeah,
Sorry,
definitely.
Chevy. Not a bad name, but just a piece of crap.
Yeah.
What was your first car? What was your favorite car?
Throughout all the years,
And it could
I
be owned cars, it could be dealership cars, doesn't matter. You've had a million of them, so
no, I know. Well, I mean, I always enjoyed obviously demos, anything that because they were new. But as something that has been my current car, I have a 2017 BMW 330i. It was one of going through my therapy. It was one of the things that I never really got anything for me, and I just wanted a German car and that build and a BMW, and that's what I got.
good thing you're a mechanic, Bill.
Yeah. Hey, it's got 168,000 miles.
Rock on. Rock
So,
on. Well, you answered the third question, which was what was your current car? So BMW 330i. What is your, and this doesn't have to be crazy again, what's your dream car?
a Porsche. Uh, just beautiful. I just look at a Porsche and I feel that it was designed with art, right? Like with very thoughtful, the lines, just everything about it. It will be my get car. And I'm in the business and I am not a car person at all. You know, I just that's the car of beauty to me is a Porsche, and it doesn't matter honestly which one. They put the same type of thought into all of them, from what I see.
Yeah. They're like you said, artwork. They're simplistic. To me, they almost look like, and it's going to sound corny, just standing still, they look
Yeah,
like they're
like
moving,
they're moving. Yeah, no,
right?
definitely,
Not a lot of cars are that way. So,
I agree.
um, yeah, Porsche would be a good one. A good one. Yeah, I'm not kind of all over the board on the car thing just because my brain goes practical, fun,
Yeah,
affordable, not
no, I know.
affordable. And so I kind of like shoes. Like I got way too many shoes for a guy, which 80% of them are in a closet collecting dust. But yeah, I like my shoes. So, um, well, Bill, I appreciate so much our friendship and our relationship, our learning. Just again, you've been an inspiration to me. I would encourage you, not that you have oodles of time, but your story and your message and your work ethic, it's just encouraging, needs to get out there. So whether that's guesting on a bunch of other people's content like you did before, or doing your own thing, or joining us, from time to time, um, would love to have it and love to see it because you're a survivor. That's the other thing that
Yeah,
I meant to say. You're a survivor, and you've been through some stuff, which a lot of people have
yeah,
been through, good and bad, and you've been blessed and you've been rock bottom. So, but you're still here and you're still cooking, and I appreciate that. Uh,
yeah.
it's, for most people, myself included, life's not easy, but there's always someone who has had better, and there's always someone who has worse. But the key thing is just to keep driving and getting back up and
Yeah, keep going.
keep going. So yeah, if you think of anyone who you would want to talk to or see on the channel, obviously you got all my numbers. Ping me and we'll make it happen because
Yeah, absolutely.
our goal here is to make this a community channel, community conversations, and especially with what you're all doing out there in California, you're going to run into a lot more interesting characters than I do here in little suburban Chicago. So
Yeah.
anyway, all right, brother. Well, have a great night. Thanks for taking some of your day off to spend time with us and share with us. I appreciate it, and have a great night.
Thanks, Carl. I really appreciate you.
All right, see you, Bill.
Okay, see you, bud. Bye.